Logan the Layman Critic here. Today we're reviewing Morbius. It's directed by Daniel Espinosa and stars Jared Leto and Matt Smith. Be ready for big spoilers. Let's talk movies. Michael Morbius is born with a rare blood disease. Vowing to find a cure for himself and his best friend, he rises in the ranks as a scientist, pursuing unconventional and dangerous means to achieve his ends. Finally, he finds his cure by combining human and vampire bat DNA. He tests it on himself and turns into a living vampire. Now he has to figure out how to cure his unquenchable thirst for human blood. But he's not the only vampire in town. Now, I made a concerted effort to avoid reading or watching any reviews on this film. That said, I am aware that expectations were extremely low, and I didn't walk into this show feeling any different from those people. But I did want to keep an open mind. So, what are my thoughts? It's serviceable entertainment. I'd say it's at least on par with the Venom movies. Jared Leto does a decent job in the titular role. He's reckless in his mission and doesn't associate with the most scrupulous of people, but his heart is clearly in the right place. He avoids playing the part as too eccentric or cartoonish. He successfully juggles the dramatic scenes with little bits of humor thrown in. Matt Smith, he plays the best friend Milo, who suffers from the same disease as Morbius. I love Smith from his Doctor Who days, and he's always a treat to watch. He throws himself into this part, chewing up the scenery. Perhaps too much. His character isn't quite fleshed out enough. There seem to be hints that he has some unsavory connections, but the movie never follows through on it. And when he, spoiler alert, becomes a vampire, he embraces the transformation and becomes this ruthless killer, and the only person he cares about is Morbius because they're the only ones of their kind. The toughest pill to swallow with that is having sympathy for him or believing his remorse toward the end of the movie. There's a lack of characterization to justify it. Adria Arjona, I'm hoping I'm saying her name correctly. She plays Martine, Morbius's colleague. She has good chemistry with Leto, and I liked her character. I like that she's a competent doctor in her own right, and she's equally passionate about finding a cure, but much more level-headed about it than Morbius. But in the end, I think she needed more to do, and the character's fate felt like, well, it felt like a total cop-out. There's no explanation or setup to justify it, and I felt like any dramatic impact was stolen from the film that could have been there. Now, for my main gripes. For starters, this is a vampire movie, but it doesn't want to commit to that. It has very little in the way of blood. It's incredibly tame, and that in itself is a big problem. But another part of the problem is one that is endemic to modern vampire films in general. Secular vampires are boring, or science fiction based, more specifically. Vampires are appealing because they're mysterious. And when you take away the magic and base them on natural law, even if it's technobabble, you rob them of their mystique. Now, can you honestly say that Deacon Frost or any of the bad guys from Blade are remotely as cool as Dracula or Lestat, Jerry Dandridge, the Lost Boys? No, of course not. And the vampires in Morbius are no different from Deacon Frost. The special effects are too heavy on CG. It's fine with the fight scenes because of the scale of the battles, but when it's used as a substitute for practical effects on the characters' faces, it just doesn't work. The facial mutations that the vampires go through, they're cool design, but they aren't convincing, and it takes you out of the movie. And it should have been done through makeup, prosthetics. There's also this weird, colorful, smoky effect they use whenever the vampires are moving quickly. And I guess they wanted to avoid the cliche of a blur, but it's given zero explanation. I can't really describe it exactly. I mean, you'd have to see it to know what I'm talking about, but it doesn't really make sense in the context of the film. Lastly, the action is uninspired. It's not bad, but there's nothing here that we haven't seen already. There's a cool moment during the climax where Morbius summons a swarm of bats to attack Milo, which would have made for a great, like, gory demise. And it would have been something like reminiscent of Hammer's Kiss of the Vampire. But they never take it where it should go, which is unfortunate. If you're bored and looking for some mindless fun, Morbius is sufficiently entertaining. As I said, it's more or less on par with the Venom flicks, but compared to the latest Spider-Man and Batman movies, it's... I suspect it'll die a quick death, and it makes me wish that they had made a Tomb of Dracula movie instead, but oh well. Until next time, ladies and gentlefellows.